Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host from the Midwest Racing Connection, Mr. Dan Plan. Hey, Dan.
Hello. Good to be back again.
We are chatting with the man from the fastest quarter mile in the world. It is Todd Thelen with Slinger Speedway. Hey, Todd. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So, Slinger, you actually have been kind of the man in charge for the most recent years, but you had kind of a racing type background even before you got into that role. Can you share kind of what your journey for how you got to where you are now and kind of what your background was?
Do we have that long? I've been around for a while.
I first remember Todd as a super late model guy back in the day.
So I started way back in the 80s, out of high school on a sprint car team. And we chased around the Midwest and even did some World of Outlaws stuff. And this time of the year, we'd go down, actually in March, we'd go down into Texas, and I pitted for a buddy of mine that's still racing today at Knoxville. And then I went to college, decided I'd try that and race go-karts while I was in college. Did that for 5 years, World Karting Association and that kind of stuff. Then I thought I was really smart and got a college degree and bought my first race car. I ran with Badger and USAC midgets from 91 until it was 96. And in 97, got in a super late model and ran that full-time until 2001, and then part-time for a year or so, and then started working at the racetrack in 2005.
And then when the opportunity came up for you to take over the reins there at Slinger, was it something that you knew instantly, yes, this is what I want to do? Or were you kind of like wrestling with it for a little bit?
That was the passion from a little kid in the grandstands at Slinger Speedway. I wanted to have a career in auto racing. I wanted to be a race car driver. Well, that didn't pan out for numerous reasons. And the next best thing was working in the industry. When I had a real job, as they say, I was vice president of a manufacturing company. I was dabbling and worked a little bit with Conrad Morgan on his stuff on the side. I helped Dick Trickle one year at the Nationals. I actually worked with Brian Vickers and crewed for his car a couple times, just helped out with odds and ends things, and just dabbling in the industry from that side of it. So I figured let's go full bore into this, and I'm kind of a homer. I like Wisconsin, and the best thing in this area was working at Slinger Speedway. So went and interviewed with Wayne and said, he said, what do you want to do here? And I said, well, in 5 or 10 years, I'd like to be helping run the place, and someday I'd like to own it. So I checked all the boxes off.
That's cool that you called your own shot and then you made it happen. I love that.
Yeah. It's kind of a chase your passion thing. I had the job that I thought was the perfect corporate world job, and I just wasn't happy. Always wanted to be in the dream type job, which is the racing industry for me. So here I am.
That's cool. And Slinger is such an iconic track that everybody who's anybody knows. So that is pretty cool to be the one steering the ship at a premier track in our country, let alone our state.
It has its ups and downs, just like any other career.
I suppose so. So there have been a lot of changes on things and a lot of challenges. I'm sure anytime you're at the head of something, like you say, there's challenges with it. But what have been some of your biggest successes in your mind so far since you did take over the reins?
Well, the simple one is the Slinger Nationals. That arguably was faltering in the late 2000s on, how do we say it, 2009, 2010. think it was 2012. Matt Kenseth was sitting on my four-wheeler, and he says, "Todd, what happened to the Nationals? It just doesn't have that feel anymore." And fast forward to 2013, the winter of 12 and 13, I'm taking the track over, and one of my goals at the time was to resurrect the Nationals. And I just started reaching out to different racers, and what can we do, and how's this going to work, and put some money together. And we I don't think we had the $10,000 purse till a few years down the road, but we started building it back up. And through the help with sponsorship and racers, people, Steve Dorr was a huge help because I got to know him. Um, and he's a Midwestern guy that lives down south. He's winters and has businesses down there, and he's very well connected. He knows Bubba Pollard and those kinds of guys really well. And just did a lot of networking to help build the Nationals back up. People like Bruce Noodleman helped out a lot with networking and doing the right things at the right times, and aligning the stars, and bringing the Nationals back to a barnstorming event that is a must race for racers in the country. And then the fans come, and we've done that. We put it back as a marquee event. I consider it top five. Some people say top three on the asphalt model side, and so that answers that question. That was one of the biggest things that we did coming back in.
I would agree with that. I think that that really was your signature. I think that's really going to end up being a big piece of your legacy with Slinger is reviving and breathing new life into the Slinger Nationals. How cool is it that iRacing is got Slinger on there now too? And you can actually look at the prices on the concession board and your Hall of Fame wall on the iRacing. It's pretty awesome. Have you noodled around with that at all?
Yeah, it's really cool. I That goes back for a few years now. I had people saying, I don't know, 10 years ago, you should get iRacing. And I'm like, maybe not 10, 8 years, maybe it was 10 years ago. It's been a while. And I didn't understand it as much. And back then it was kind of I I reached out to them, asked them what it was about, and for iRacing, they were pushing it, and I was on the side of, "Oh, you're going to pay us to do this? How does this all work?" And they're like, "No, we're not paying anybody. We can't afford to do that." So now, fast forward to a few years ago, and iRacing's so popular now that it's a pull deal. They don't have to push it; it's a pull, and tracks want to be on it because it's a good marketing tool. It really is. There's a lot of value there from our side of it, and it's really cool. It's really cool, and that came about. It started with Monster Games, and of all things SRX, because that came with that program. SRX had wanted to have an online gaming, and that was Monster. So they produced it, and then Monster was bought by iRacing, and the fit just was natural. And it was took about 2 years to get the whole program together, but it's really awesome.
You talked about
I think it's,
SRX. I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was gonna say it. I mean, in addition to that, being able to see the concessions and the Wall of Fame and stuff, I thought it was really cool that they included the Dan Margetta camera angle too on top of the tower. That's pretty neat to have that too.
I had no idea how detailed it was. None. We would have cleaned things up a little bit better, but it is what you get at a short track. I, I think Slinger Speedway is 77 years old, and it's like an old farm. It goes through a lot of changes, a lot of different things. The infrastructure is old. I've We're doing a lot of updates on since I've taken it over, but still it's an old place. When the CBS came in to do their site tour, they said, "Don't change anything. This is awesome." People, it's Midwest, flyover Midwest country. People love the nostalgia. So we try to keep a fine mix of keeping it looking good and not changing it too much, but because it's Slinger Speedway.
Yeah. When SRX came to Slinger, I think one of the coolest videos of that whole race was that drone shot. And then I started wondering how that guy who was controlling the drone, how he was, I mean, that had to have been crazy because it's such a tight little short track that goes so fast.
The drone was pretty big. I don't remember if you were there, if you saw that, but I want to say a 4 foot span, wingspan. And those were professional pilots they brought in. They came in a day or so before the cars even showed up, and they were testing and driving or flying those things around. It was really cool.
It was very cool, even just for the view in the video of the race. It was just nuts. So that had to have been kind of fun for them. And was it Dick Trickle that said that the track is kind of like flying fighter jets in a gymnasium there?
Yeah, that was Dick. Um, Actually, the last summer he came up, he and I were talking about, what to do at the racetrack and how should we, you know, improvements and things like that. I remember he passed. Did he pass in 2013? Whenever that was. And Dick said, whatever you do, Todd, don't pave this place. I mean, you got to fix it here and there, meaning the asphalt, the racetrack. He says, but if you pave the whole place, you're going to take the character out of it. So we we've been patching it because she's getting old. But people always say, you're going to pave it, and I say, no, I'm going to go back on Trickle's idea of keeping the character of the racetrack.
It's pretty
I was
cool that
actually there. I think it was probably like early 90s when they last repaved it. I was there for the Slinger Nationals, and I remember on Monday they were going around with water trucks because it was super hot and it was brand new pavement. So they were trying to protect the track. And then at the end of the day, they just coated the whole thing and Wayne coated it in floor dry to try to keep it from getting too greasy and stuff overnight. And I'm sure that was a challenge back then the last time they repaved it. But like I think Dick is right. It seems like anytime you totally repave an asphalt track, it loses a lot of its character and it takes a long time for it to get back.
Yeah, that's a true statement.
yeah, he really was obviously a legend in Wisconsin. How cool that you worked with him. And I think it's even more important that you have a racing background too, Todd. That allows you to have one foot firmly planted in that racer's mentality. And you have a very great business acumen. So you have another foot well planted in that business side. You really are a perfect person to be running the track. And I love that you're taking racers' input, especially Dick Trickles like that. That's great.
I still think a little bit too much like a race car driver. I need to have, I have really good staff to keep me grounded, our tech people and our race director and those kinds of things. So,
Say more about that racer mentality and how you feel like that might have been too much sometimes.
um, when we change rules, and sometimes you change a rule for a really good reason, but ultimately it costs a racer money. And why are we doing the things we're doing as promoters? Does it make sense as a racer? Uh, and then it's on track calls when I see things happening on the racetrack, and I'm like, damn, that I probably done the same thing, but I wouldn't have black flagged the guy, that kind of stuff. So tech things, whatever, anything that has to do with the competition side of the racetrack, because I did that and I understand where the racers are coming from. Um, I understand it and I feel for them, but sometimes we can't let those things happen. I don't get upset when race car drivers yell at me when they get out of the race car because I understand the passion and the heat of the moment. If they're still bitching 3 or 4 days later, it's a problem. But right at the moment, I don't like it, but I'm okay with it. I understand it. Things like that.
For sure.
And I know
For
the
sure.
costs. I know what it costs these guys. It's not, I've been there, done that. Both sides of the
Yeah.
fence.
You mentioned the rules, and you were actually one of the folks that was at the table to kind of create the aligned rules for several tracks this year. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of how that came together?
Sure. I would say Jerry Albee and I, the last 3 years at least, have been talking about standardized rules. Um, Little things that actually not really they're small in print, but they're big to the competitors. He's at 60% left side weight. Everybody else is 58%. He's at 27.50 at ace, and everybody else is 27 or 25. And little things that add up. How do you measure bodies? How do we do things that most people would think are standardized? They're not really standardized. So those are the things that finally last summer Jerry and I were talking, and it's like let's just meet. Let's get this rolling. And Terry Tucker was involved. He's not a super late model track, but he wants to run some more super late models. And we had Greg McCarnes at the meeting, and just we spread it out from there. And we're working on limited late rules and sportsman rules and 4-cylinder rules. But the goal this year was to get the super late rules the same at these tracks, and we did that. Kakana's adapted them. Plover's adapted them. There might be minor changes they're working on, but the nuts and bolts of the main tracks are all the same.
That's
And that's the
incredible.
goal.
I think, like you were saying too, it wasn't probably from the fan perspective, the rules didn't seem to be big difference, but from the competitor, those few things that were different from track to track might have kept guy, like a weight percentage or their motor weight's going to keep them from wanting to change their car to go from one place to another. But now that'll be one less thing to worry about.
And just knowing you've got it. If you went from the Dell's rulebook to the Slinger rulebook, to the Midwest Tour rulebook, and our rules are almost identical to the Midwest Tours, but the books just look different. You can't even navigate the things. Just one starts with the bodies, one starts with chassis, the other one, just hodgepodge. Just standardizing the look of it is a big deal. And again, things that don't seem like a big deal. And I'll say this one, it's a pain in my ass, but aluminum bumpers, are they legal or aren't they legal? And if they are, what's the weight? How does it all work? And we sat at the table. It was like politicians with lobbying, what for each of our tracks and the rules for the drivers that we think is best. But 99% of them were all the same anyway. It really was. So it was just getting them together.
I think that's awesome that you guys did that. I mean, obviously, nothing is ever going to be perfect for every single person, but wow, that's a big step forward to try to help at least get everybody on the same page, if you will. So kudos to you guys on that.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It really is a big deal. And I thought it was going to come with the ASA last year. Actually, I thought a couple years ago Ricky Brooks was getting it together, and I thought, well, SRL ASA will get together and we'll all get together. But now it's like the Hatfield and McCoys. You cannot hardly say those two sentences or two names in the same sentence without someone getting pissed off.
Yeah.
But we're in good shape here in Wisconsin. We've got some of the best super late model racing in the country. I'd put that against anybody. I'm not just talking Slinger. I'm talking all the racetracks. We're spoiled, and you guys know that.
Oh, yeah. Very lucky to have what we do up here, which does make it a little frustrating when you're going to have somebody out there pissing and moaning about something that's maybe just for them and not everybody else, because you don't want to pee in the pot or the pool. You should pee in the pot, not the pool.
We do both.
Well, yeah. So, what are some things that folks can look forward to at Slinger this year? You got some tricks up your sleeve for the season to kind of do things. You guys gave away one of those nice side by sides last year. Are you doing something like that again this year?
Yeah, we'll do that again. Pretty much standard. It's status quo for this season. All the kinds of excitement. Don't get me wrong, but we're very similar schedule as last year. Opening up with a tour event in what do you get my schedule here? April 21st, and regular racing starts May 17th. Those are afternoon races. I'm sorry, May 19th is the second date, which is the Keith's Marina race against cancer. Then we go to night racing on the 26th, and As you know, we had the SRX race scheduled. That's now off the schedule. That was the excitement for the summer. And our Slam Fest do really well. We've added monster trucks a couple of years ago, which does really well. Um, Pretty exciting schedule. A new division we have this year, not really new, but it's something you guys know about up at the Oktoberfest, where they have, I think it's called Crate-toberfest, the
Yep.
602s,
Yep.
No, yeah.
where the trucks and the modifieds and the late models run together. We're going to test the waters on we're calling it the 602 craters. So you can run a truck or a modified or a late model together. We're looking forward to that, and it seems like a lot of interest. People are calling, asking about how the rules are going to work to combine those divisions, which we're looking forward to. It's
I
about
am
That
too.
affordable.
that does sound really neat because I've enjoyed that the last few years at Oktoberfest just because you get to see so many different things on the track at the same time. You got a sportsman car and a 602 late model and a truck and a modified, and they're all really really close in speed. And I would imagine at Slinger they'll be even closer to speed.
Sure. The guys like Bill Preetz have called, and how are we going to set the rules and how's it all going to work? And Dennis Prunty heard about it, and he's curious about how it's going to work. And um, I'll let this cat out of the bag. Someone might be pissed off, but he's like, David was all excited about it, meaning David Prunty. He's got old left-hander race cars sitting in the shop. He's going to throw a 602 in and come out and try it. And, that's what it's about, is having fun and affordable racing. And it's so hard to do that these days. I mean, even a
It
602
is.
engine went from, I don't know, let's just say dressed 55 or $6,000. Now they went up $3,000 or $4,000 or close to 10 or whatever. I mean, nothing is cheap anymore. It's always cost money to race, but it seems like it's just exponentially in the last 3 or 4 years gotten so much more expensive.
Well, technically,
That
even the grocery store is more expensive too, for
yeah,
that matter. Vote
I
this
was gonna
this year, folks.
along those lines of saving or spending less, I guess. It looked like your super late guys got behind the idea of instead of racing weekly to doing the late eight like you do, where you just race a couple times a month throughout the year. It seems like they were behind that pretty good too.
Absolutely. That was something that I talked to all the, we have 15, 18 regular guys, regular teams, talked to all of them. And there was some that said, nah, that's not a good idea. But when they thought about it, they're like, you know what? It isn't so bad because it's, racers inherently, they want to race. It's an addiction type thing. They want to race every week. But when you get right down to it, the cost of these cars and the maintenance that goes into them these days, um, it doesn't add up. And these, you would you'd think that if it wasn't enough racing, the guys would be racing somewhere else all the time, and they're not. So 8 to 10 races for these teams, it's more than enough. And we increased our payout to 2,500 to win, 500 to start, and we do it 8 times a year instead of paying them. We were like 12 or 1,500 to win and 300 to start, and that was every night. So we increased the payout, race a few less times, and the racing's been really good. Car count's been better.
You've
You know,
got
it's
go ahead.
go ahead.
I I was just going to say that for PR works, you've had Lynn doing a great job for you, and she's going to kind of step away, and it's your son now, right? That's going to be doing a lot of the promotional social media stuff for you.
No, that's a half truth.
Okay.
Luke does help. My son Luke helps a lot, and he's done a lot of the um, more the race day things, and in the summer helps because Lynn's so busy. So he absolutely has helped, and he's done a lot of the work. But Lynn still is
She's still going to be
fully
doing it.
fully all winter long. She's involved in the when in the summer when she has time. But Luke's taken a lot off of her plate, and he's creative kind of a person. So
Hmm.
he's really good at that kind of stuff.
So he's given her a
Um,
little bit of a breather then.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah, I don't want to say that. I'm more being protective and defensive for her. She's not
Yeah.
stepping back. She's adding help. We're giving her extra help
Nice.
because
So
she
what
is awesome.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I saw her down in Florida too, running around and promoting your drivers that were down there this past November, December.
Right.
So what is that like for you though to work with your son?
It's a pain in the ass.
Don't sugarcoat it.
Well, he's a hybrid of me and my wife, and yeah, it's I'm difficult. You know that, Jackie. And
You
Dan, you
can,
don't know me as well, but I can be very difficult. I don't walk the planet hating people, but I'm pretty set in my ways, and I'm not the easiest to get along with all the time. So
but
then my son reminds me of who I am sometimes, and it pisses me off.
oh shoot. So are there any people that are going to be coming to the nationals that you already have locked in or still in negotiations for that? Or do people just come out of the woodwork for that? How does that really work for the big names to come?
So that's one of the things that was the rebuilding part of it. The biggest building block was creating the event that people want to come race at, race teams want to come to. The downside of that is because we're not paying these guys to come, I can't give you a list of 10 people like, yeah, check these all off. They're coming. I already, it's already done with their agents. We don't have that. I've heard of 5 or 6 teams that are already committed to coming. I don't like to say the names because I don't like they'll release it on their schedules. Um, of course, Ty said he's coming, so
Oh
we can
yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
Um, but all the racers that have been coming the last few years have verbally committed. The out of state guys that everybody wants to see. Um, the surprises, I shouldn't say all of them. Chase Elliott has not said he's coming. Um, but a guy like Chase he just comes because he wants to race, and he wants to race at a racetrack that's a challenge, and it's a big deal. So people are shocked, like, "Well, you don't pay these guys to come in?" No, we don't pay them to come in. They come and race because it's what they want to do.
And that's a total testament to the legendary iconic status of Slinger that everybody wants to be there. I know I talked to Robbie Reiser. He was a former guest here on the Racing Nuggets podcast. And I had asked him about coming back to Slinger sometime. And he's like, oh, man, I'd love to. He said, but it would have to be the right opportunity with a good car. And I jokingly said something about, gee, I know a guy who has cars. And he laughed too. He's like, well, let me know, right? So I said something to Tobe, and he's like, "Hey, I don't think he's going to fit in one of Ty's
Oh boy!
seats."
Well, we get a seat from Mike Egan because he's already offered it.
That's awesome. It would be great to see him come back and run. I don't know how that would all go with everybody, but man, I'd love to see Robbie Reiser back behind the wheel again at Slinger. That'd be pretty cool.
A lot of people would, and I had to eat crow because I could have swore a few years ago Robbie told me, "No, I'm done. I'm not racing anymore." And so Todd Bailing's calling me up saying Robbie wants to race. I'm like, that's bullshit. He doesn't want to race anymore. And all of a sudden, yeah, sure enough, Robbie wants to race again. So if he wants to race, we'll get him a race car. I've already
Well,
talked to some of his old local pals that used to hang with him, and um, the how do we say it? The the seed has been planted.
good. Good. I think that is a thing with the racers that once it's in their blood, they may say they're done, but boy, if you dangle the right opportunity, oh, look at your dog.
She's wondering what's going on.
That's a great dog. Anyway, you put a racer in an opportunity where they might be able to get back behind the wheel in a competitive car. They're all for it. That right there is, I think, one of the reasons why that 602 series is so beloved. And I think part of it is that you get to see a lot of those racers from days gone by that will probably slide behind the wheel because A, you said like it was very affordable. But B, it's pretty easy to be competitive in that because it's pretty much, I don't want to say anything goes, but there's a lot of leeway there.
I don't know what's going on here. She's feeling me. So
Did you have
Well,
dinner? She's wanting to
she
lick your face.
well, maybe
no, she
Jack. Maybe you should ask the dog a question, Jacqueline.
I could do that. What's her
yeah,
name?
Oakley.
Oakley. Oakley want a treat?
Yeah,
Perfect.
go lay down. Go lay down. Yeah.
Good dog. Good dog. Well, Todd, what's on your bucket list, for things in racing, either at Slinger or for yourself with doing something in life?
Hmm. I checked all the lists. The lists have been checked. Um, I shouldn't say that. This is an asphalt track owner and promoter. I always wanted to drive a wing sprint car,
Hmm.
That was
and I
something
never
I
did
was
that.
going to ask too. I've on some of the streaming races I've seen. I think it's a like a 360 or limited sprint or something I see occasionally in Iowa with a big Slinger sticker on the wing.
That's my buddy Jeff Wilkie that I pitted for
Okay.
right out of high school. He runs. Um, it used to be a 305. I think they call them race savers now at Knoxville weekly,
Okay.
and he also runs some of the other tracks around Burlington and other tracks in that part of the country. But he lives in Knoxville, right
Cool. Yeah,
downtown.
I mean the Slinger logo is pretty recognizable. You're not gonna think it's something else when you see it.
Sure. Yeah. We sponsored Rico Abreu this year too.
Cool.
When he
I
killed
actually have a
his swing
bottle of his I have his El Bandito tequila right here.
Wow.
tequila.
I don't drink it though. It's just sitting there.
I have a bottle of
Sure.
that on the shelf too from when they were at the Slinger um, 2 years ago.
Cool.
I don't buy that neither one of you drink it. You probably have that thing refilled with water, Dan.
I know I'm not drinking tequila, I'll tell you that.
I will drink tequila, but it's the one I have is keepsake. So
I get
I
that.
need to
Well,
do it. Rico needs to autograph it.
there you go. Well, would your buddy Jeff ever let you drive his wing sprint?
You probably would.
So there's something
Yeah, you
that could
would.
get checked off your list.
You'd have to go all the way to Knoxville for that, probably.
Well, speaking of which, what does a vacation look like for you and your wife? Do you guys actually take a vacation?
We go in the North Woods. Um, it's been since our kids have been old enough to play football, which is goes back quite a few years now. Say for the last 10 or 15 years, we go to the North Woods for 6 days, maybe seven, depending upon if it rained out at Slinger that night. But we rent a cabin in on a lake and spend a week in the North Woods.
Nice. That is a
I
good
would suggest
unplug.
I would suggest going to the Knoxville Nationals for a vacation. That'd be great. And you'll be back by Sunday, so you'll still be there for Slingers. So just
And
something
you
to keep in mind.
maybe you could run the
I've been
car.
I've been to the Knoxville Nationals though.
Oh,
I've been around. I didn't say it when I was racing the midget. I actually worked like right out of college, I had an executive management job in Kmart. I was traveling all these different places, all the different stores, and I got tired of that, and I took off one summer, and I was a full time racer and worked for Dave Olsing selling pictures. That's
oh,
back in
cool.
the early '90s, where you pulled into a rig, you pulled your rig in. He had a motorhome, and he printed the photos right in the back. This is before digital stuff. We're at Knoxville, and I walk up to Danny Lasoski and I go, "You want to buy his picture?" And he was really rude to me. He's like, why do I want to buy it? Where'd you get that? It's from tonight, kind of a thing. But yeah, Dave and I went all over the Midwest doing that. So I've
Wow.
been to a lot of different racetracks, even that I didn't race at, and experienced a lot. So
Cool.
yeah, Knoxville Nationals, been there, done that. But been in Eldora, been all over the place.
You're never going to cover Slinger with dirt, are you?
Well, we won't talk about that now. We did a few years ago with for the off-road truck race. So that was a pain in the ass.
I
So
bet.
I think we still have dirt floating around there somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yowza. What is your favorite event on a regular race night to just kind of sit and watch? Or are you not able to really sit and watch much because you're running around too much?
Well, I get nervous watching the supers because I don't like crashes. I don't see any division. I don't like getting a wreck. And I know so many of these guys, I get like that like that parent nervousness for many reasons because I don't want to see them get wrecked. I don't want to see problems. I don't want the headaches that go with it. Um, so I watch the supers with excitement, but I don't really have a lot of time to watch. But if all of a sudden I see something exciting going on, and usually it's like the Slinger Bees or the Sportsmen have been really good, I'll watch. When it's a good race, and there's just so much going on a race night, running back and forth.
There is. And it takes a lot of people to put a program on. And I know that that's kind of been a challenge for a lot of small businesses, let alone racetracks, to find good, reliable help. Is that a challenge for you at Slinger?
I'm going to say no, because we have done very well the last, even through COVID. Um, my wife is an integral part of that. She helps. She's good with people, way better than I am as far as the that close management type stuff. Um, so we do well with the concession help. We do well with um, our tech staff is good. We're adding to that. We have good people. Our safety team is one of the best. I put them up against anybody. We have just great people all the way around. We've got over 100 employees. Not They don't
Wow.
all work every night, but on any given Sunday night, there's over 80 people there. So it's a lot to do, and we have not had problems. Or we have little turnover, very little turnover. So we're blessed that way. I do want to add this back to the what do I enjoy? I enjoy a good race. And the Ty Majeski Fenhouse fans don't want to hear this, but when Ty and Luke were car fighting at the Nationals a couple of years ago, I don't get excited, and I was like jumping up and down when Byron was coming. I don't care who it is. I just like to see a good race, and I don't like to see guys wreck. I don't like to see guys bump each other off the bottom. And those two are so busy car fighting, and here comes William Byron. I get goosebumps talking about it. There's a YouTube video out there, some guys in the grandstands, and the guy doesn't like Ty. He's not a fan of Ty, and he's cussing Ty, but he's going, William effing Byron, can you believe it? And it's surreal to see this kind of stuff. And he's telling his buddy after the checkered, he's like, this is why we come to Slinger Speedway. This is the best effing racing in the world, and on and on. And it's just cool stuff. But those things that's what it's all about, is that kind of a race. You're on the big platform. Everybody's watching, and 25 to go, and here comes this guy that's never raced Slinger Speedway before, but he's a big deal. And I'll say it myself, who was William Byron? But when he got in a super late model and started racing in the country, this guy could drive a race car. He's really good. And he, he schooled those guys. It was cool.
It's kind of funny because he was running super lates before he got to Cup and just kind of had sort of mild success there. And then after he went to Cup, he comes back to super lates and he's a major contender now. So
I
it's
was
kind of
Oh
wild.
yeah.
I was thinking the same thing too. I was trying to give Bond credit because once he started, because like when I that was when I the year I think it was the year he won the Slinger Nationals. He won like the 50 lapper, 100 lapper at Speed Weeks at New Smyrna, and I was like, and he didn't start in the back, right? I mean, he started in the middle and he drove his way through, and I'm like, wow, this guy can drive, and I hadn't seen that in the Cup side, and now you see it on the Cup side, so
Hmm.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I
Yeah, it
think
really
that,
is.
and, and, and I'm full disclosure, I never was a William Byron fan. I mean, yeah, cool, he comes race by us, but after watching him do that and race clean, never put the bumper anybody, not that I saw, and win. That's how you do it. Um, there's two lanes, especially at Slinger. Just pass the guy on the high side. Don't go in there in the bottom and dump him off the bottom. I don't. I don't like that. I'll whine about things I don't like more than things I like.
Isn't that normal for everybody though? Yeah.
Mm, maybe
Well,
it's a
Todd,
Wisconsin.
it,
I don't know.
maybe it's just human nature though too. Is there anything that you'd like to make sure that we do mention here yet before we close things out?
I just have to thank all of our staff because I just mentioned that we have really, really good people, and we're blessed to have that. From our car parkers to our maintenance people to the concession people, the staff leads, our food service manager, the office manager. Um, we're just really in a good position. We we do probably more than most short tracks communication wise, and that's all thanks to my wife. We have Zoom meetings all winter long with staff. I don't know how many companies do that, at our level. Um, Communication is important, and you can never communicate too much. And we do our best. We don't always look the smartest on a Sunday night or a Tuesday night, whatever that may be, but it's not because we didn't try. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you guys for doing what you do. I mean, without the media, we don't, it's just that extra extension for us to let everybody know what we do.
Well, we appreciate
Sometimes,
you coming on.
sometimes you're a pain in our ass, but at the end of the day, we got to get along together.
For
So,
sure. For sure. I want
yeah.
his one final thing I wanted to say. The first time I ever saw a glitter screen printed sweatshirt was at Slinger several years ago, and I bought it. That is my favorite sweatshirt, and I'd never seen that before. So I just want to say, I think you guys have some of the best merchandise. And I'm going to probably guess that it's your wife that's in charge of that. No,
No,
who is?
it's my nephew, Chuck Wagon.
Well, Chuck
Do you
Wagon.
know Chuck Wagon?
I don't think I've ever met him.
Oh boy,
But
yeah,
man, I want to throw my arms around him and hug him because I love that glitter sweatshirt, and that's just an awesome thing. I mean, that's unique. Again, another unique thing about Slinger,
yeah. He does real well with all that stuff. There's not too many racetracks you can't go to that's on the asphalt side where you don't see a Slinger shirt.
right? Some people wear them for their safety shirts and get in trouble.
Yeah, well, that was
We
a good
won't go
one.
there. Anyway, really appreciate you, Todd, and your dog as well too, Oakley, for making a special appearance. And good luck to you this 2024 season at Slinger.
All right, thank you.